Tyler with the In the Lead Show. Today I have an awesome guest for you guys. I'm talking with Colin from Top Producer about conversions and how to maximize what you're doing in your relationships that you're building with the people in your pipeline, sort of the differences between automation and handling all these tasks manually. We get really deep in what you should be doing with your pipelines to maximize the conversion ratio that you have with your leads. So really excited to get into it. Here we go with Colin. Hey everyone, this is Tyler. Really excited to introduce Colin Burton to you all. Some of you may know him. He's pretty popular over there at Top Producer, the CRM company for real estate agents. And I have Colin on the show today just to talk a lot about CRMs, follow-up, lead conversion, and his perspective on this whole sales process in real estate, because I know a lot of you have questions about that. So Colin looks like he, if you check out his LinkedIn profile, link it up on the blog, he's been everything from marketing consultant to, product dev to in sales himself. So he has a lot of insight into this stuff. And we're going to dive deep into a lot of the questions that you have in terms of your CRMs and building up your pipeline. So welcome, Colin.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So I guess a good place to start is you've interacted with a lot of real estate agents and a lot of coaches and a lot of people in this industry. And there are people that are successful, and unfortunately, a lot of the stats point to, some people not being so successful and there being a lot of churn of new agents. So I'm just curious, you have sort of this perspective. What is your primary cornerstone you'd like to point to in terms of people that are successful and what they do compared to people that might not be as successful in real estate?
Yes, it's a good question. So I think the number one success factor I've seen is being able to maintain the same level of personalization and contact without despite the fact that your database is growing, you've got a lot more people that you've got to deal with. So I think that one's good, and that can be there's a lot of really obvious points. One surprising fact is most of these don't even get followed up with. So just by picking up your phone and sending an email, you're going to stand out quite a bit there. Being available. I talk to realtors every single day, and you would be surprised. You'd be appalled at how many haven't even set up their voicemail. So things like that are basics that you shouldn't overlook.
Yeah. So there's sort of this this baseline, and we can link stuff up in the video, but there's this baseline where you have to follow up with every lead. You have to. What sort of system do you like to recommend? Is there something built in that you like to see all agents start with, at least at that basic level?
Yeah, get some sort of database started. It doesn't have to be the most complex. All in. It could be just building your database, your data map, and fields, things that you're customizing about them, like their buyer preferences, their spouse's name, their dog's name, if you can, because that's how you're going to really customize things. And if you're going to take advantage of automation and those kinds of things, you want to come across as knowing what you're, and progressing what you know about them in the verbiage that you're using with them.
Right. And so if you were starting, let's say today, you just completely lost your job and you're starting as an agent, what would be the top 4 to 5 things that you'd set up either automation wise, or you'd have on a post-it note next to your desk that every lead I do these 4 to 5 things?
Yeah, so that would be there's a couple of things you can do systems wise as well as just networking wise. Good thing to do when you first get started is build up a couple of alliances or connections, people that are going through what you're going through. Good example of that. Find a mortgage broker who's just in their first year as well, and you guys can share and work together on those kinds of things. So there's partnerships that should be in place, as well as mentorship, that kind of stuff. But systems wise, I would say getting a sense of what your strategy is. So knowing what your strategy is. Mm-hmm. Don't walk into a system like Top Producer CRM or any of those other ones without knowing what your prospecting strategy, because all that stuff is not going to really make sense. You need the context there, and that's what you need. If you're going after FSBOs, or if you should have some sort of alignment between what your strategy is and what tools are available and how they're actually going to help you do that. So
right. Yeah, that's a great point. So you'd sort of determine your strategy, say you want to target referral-based business.
Yeah.
and then you develop your system pipeline for that business, and then maybe move to the next one. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So get really good at one or two, and you should have in your business plan. Everyone should have just some sort of roadmap or playbook.
Right.
But in that, you should have gone through a couple different lead sources or a couple of different prospecting strategies, and you should have a logical decision why you chose to commit to one over the other. Because whether it's the local market conditions, what's going on there, whether it's your style, maybe I know one guy has a 6-phone auto dialer, and he's cool with that. I don't know. I would my head would explode. Some people are actually, doing the 20 by 20 by 20. You do
Right.
a house, you door knock or you drop off a piece of material, simple things like that. So, tying those things again to the conversions and having a good call to action and having that lead or that conversion flow into a system. Those are kind of some of the basics as well.
So that's the thing that you kind of see as like the primary, like anyone who's successful does that really well. And it doesn't matter where they're getting the leads so it doesn't really matter where they're getting the leads as long as they're getting some. And then they just ultra focus on that conversion element of it is sort of what you like to point to.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So like, given that, we can use CRMs to automate all that stuff you're just talking about, like what's the number one mistake you tend to see agents either coming to you or, you hop in someone's CRM or someone gives you a call? Like what's that number one mistake people make when setting this whole kernel up?
Yeah. Well, I would definitely say going into a CRM or investing in technology under the notion that it's gonna get you in the door, it's gonna negotiate the contract, it's gonna handle all those objections, it's gonna do all that stuff for you. If it was that easy, then none of us would be in business, or it just wouldn't you wouldn't the level of respect to realtors and the trust that they have isn't really going to be as relevant.
It doesn't
So
matter.
so you got to have a strategic business objective that your system or the culmination of different systems are gonna get you to, and then that's gonna drive your decisions on, and you're gonna have more pleasant experiences with when you call in us and ask what I have this strategy, perfect, we can show you what to do. Some people call us and say, I don't know what the heck to do, and so that's where it's a little bit more difficult. So knowing knowing that the system is there, it's going to help you a lot, but you have to draw the alignment between, again, the strategy, coming back to what your objective is and what the system is going to do for you.
Right. And as far as that goes, like, where does automation start / technology start, and where does it end then for you?
There's varying levels of automation, and I think automation has got a bad it's got a bad rep because there's people are a lot of time misusing it.
Mm-hmm.
There's full automation and then there's semi-automation. So full automation, give you an example of that. Someone fills out a lead inquiry form, realtor.com, they end up in your bucket, and you're sending them a text and an email, something like that. You're automating that follow-up. It's okay if you don't know that much about that person, because why would they expect you to? But if you are not showing in your verbiage or your conversations that you're actually learning things about them, like you're spitting back, market reports or things that are based on what they're looking for,
Mm-hmm.
or you're adding in fields, things to your data map, like, oh, hey Bob, how's your wife, how's the kids, how's these different things that you're building your data map, so that if you are going to go and send a customized email,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to know things about them, and it's not going to, it's going to be encoded in a way that they're going to, not decode it as, oh, this guy just, sent that to 700 people at once. So little things like that you can do. You can do full-on automation, on things that are, I guess, maybe triggers for workflow, for example. So you don't actually have to. You can send the email automatically, but you can also just have a contextual reminder. Phone call 1, phone call 2, send this item of value. Basically just triggers for you to sit down and figure out, okay, how do I actually connect with this person as a human? And those are kind of some, beneficial ways that you can use technology and automation without getting into trouble.
Yeah, so you try to automate the immediate things that you're going to basically copy paste anyway. So, you get a text lead and it's just a name, a phone number, and maybe a zip code or something. Like, you can automate that. But when it comes to following up, like with your referral business or trying to get people to commit to testimonials and referrals down the road, those would be more of a task that automates, automate the task to do that, but then you go write the task manually. Is that
Yeah,
the type
exactly.
of?
So so you can, you can easily, well, not very easily, but you can actually sit down on your Google Calendar. You can map out those touch points, or you can design a contextual kind of way to go about. Okay, this is now it's time to do this. Sit down and kind of do it. So you don't actually have to have it pull the trigger all the
Right.
time. And that's often maybe you want to do a culmination. This one may be automated, but my next touch point for them, I'm actually going to sit down and I'm going to think about what to say to them. So they're, using it, use a good portfolio of different, the touch points and how automatic or how personal they are, and just make sure you're not coming across as someone who's just like has learned nothing about the person over the last 6 to 8 months when they've been kind of working together.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good way to shoot yourself in the foot. So is that something how often would you, sometimes in my business, like we set something and then we forget to look back on it and analyze the report. Like, how would you recommend agents to not just like set up these daily tickers and then forget about it for like 5 years, but what type of timeline would you give them for editing or grooming this automation or even automated reminder timeline that they're setting up to match current climate and sales and everything?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, a little bit of clarification on that. Are you kind of referring to just how to actually space it out given the different scenarios that you may come
Yeah,
across?
how would a realtor, for example, use conversion reports to groom or fix up the schedule they've defined? So maybe in their fresh leads category, they're sending an email, a text, and making a call day one and then sometime in the afternoon, but they're finding if they call randomly 3 times that first day, they're converting more of those leads. So like, how often would you have them redefine what they have set up for each of their referral tracks that they have coming in?
So on the topic of kind of just getting them in the door and converting them and kind of just getting them to work with you, there's a lot of different stats. HBR did a good lead conversion study on you've got to do about 6 touch points before you actually discard the lead and put it in your kind of your off to the side.
Mm-hmm.
So doing that, you may send a text and email and try a phone call, but if they don't answer, you've sent a text, a phone call, an email, so likely you're going to get something back, and at that time you've kind of shown yourself, I've responded to them, I'm attentive. So then likely you're going to see benefits from there, but then kind of figuring out, okay, is this person really busy? Find them on LinkedIn. You can kind of easily figure out those kinds of things, and figure out, okay, what's this person about? Do your little bit of research and then figure out a way to touch them without. I wouldn't call them 6 or 7 times in the first day.
Yeah.
Have maybe a 7 to 10 day kind of lead conversion plan where I'm kind of just trying out a couple things. Send them a market report, send them something of value,
Right.
send them a useful fact, or about that provides a little bit of context about what they're going through right now. So there's you can space it out.
So you touched on something there that I think is like crucial to understand. You talked about LinkedIn, social media, and all that. So how has that changed over the course of the last 5 to 10 years? How has social media impacted sales and what realtors can do to engage new leads?
Yeah, people use it. People use it horribly, and people use it phenomenally. So some people really have it, and some people don't. If you're just posting just for the sake of posting, then and you're just going just to get content out there, and then that's it. And you're thinking that that's going to give you a bunch of conversions. You're missing maybe a lead capture or something like those kinds of things that are actually going to substantiate a conversion. That maybe someone may have really liked your article or really liked your post, but if there's no conversion or no call to action, like engage with me, converse with me, or fill out something or get something from me, those little things that are often missed. The conversation elements, and some people are just setting up an auto poster that's going to just post for the next 12 months and thinking that that's going to generate a lot of business without them actually having to get in there, engage in the conversations, and spark the discussions that need to be had. And that's, I think, how social media can be used,
Yeah.
as well as just branding yourself favorably and just showing, yeah, hey, I'm a human being, and these are things I like. So there's that human element as well that social media gives.
So yeah, I think what my biggest takeaway with there is using those platforms then as a, would you say like a trust building exercise or engagement? I guess engagement's overused a lot when we're talking about social media. It's like every other post on websites about engagement, but
It's the cliche
yeah,
statement, yeah.
exactly. Yeah, it's a little cliche, but the advice I think that you said that was interesting was that building the trust to show that you're human, so that when they get the phone call, there's a reason to pick up and respond with you. Is
Yeah.
that sort of where you're going with that?
Yeah, that's the main, I guess, meat and bread of social media, and then having the call to actions and the conversions, those types of technical details, and how you're actually using social media for marketing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, human, keep it human.
Yeah. So then, like that kind of brings. So does that then spread over to your philosophy towards like building sales relationships? Is to make it human, or what's your take on how you can increase your conversions as a realtor, given some overarching philosophy? Like, what would be the 2 sentence to 3 sentence thing you tell a realtor that would be like, use this general guidance and it will guide pretty much every decision you make towards
So
sales?
so my business is very relationship based.
Mm-hmm.
I don't run the exact same style of business as a realtor do, but a lot of the same notions kind of run true.
Right.
It's a person on the other end of the line. They're going through something that you need to help them with. The two parties working together have to create more value than them being separate. So if you're just dealing with me just because I'm a realtor and I'm not actually adding, helping you figure out what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish, and I'm not reassuring you or answering your questions, or actually getting in the car and going with you to view that house, then that person as a home buyer is not gonna. It's a big transaction. It's a huge transaction, often the biggest transaction that a person will make in their life.
Right.
Is the real estate. So you need someone that's going to actually work with you, be with you through that process, and add value to you along the way, instead of just treating you like, again, a number. So keeping it human, realizing there's a person on the other end of that email or phone that you're making, and your message is being decoded by someone, whether you like it or not. So just making sure that you're encoding the message so that they're decoding it in a way that's portraying you as professional, attentive. You're with them. So hopefully that answers. It's very,
Yeah,
very.
that's like a really. I hope people like pause and re-listen to that, because there's like really important message there to make it connect as a real person. That's something that you don't see that often in this business, and yet like it doesn't take that much energy to create that, something that's the two parts being greater than them being separate. That's, you can do that in a lot of different ways. So like the other end of that would be an agent just starting out. Like, what would the top 3 tips that you'd give them for their first year in the business when it comes to mastering all this stuff? I mean, like everything we talked about probably just like has them churning in the ears, like they don't know how to get started. Like, what would be the top 3 tips to get started?
You get started, we'll establish. I mean, the social presence, that's really free and easy to establish. So establish your presence, your brand. There's those basics that you kind of got to get out of the way. But getting going back to your strategy, figuring out, okay, which prospecting strategy am I most comfortable with? Where am I going to be able to generate the most business for myself? And then creating those strategic alliance, getting a mentor, someone who's maybe there's a rainmaker, maybe there's someone who has so much lead flow that they can't even follow up. Maybe they're one of those people who doesn't follow up with those leads. Maybe they follow up with some of them. Maybe it's a lead that's only 750K, and then they don't want to deal with anything less. Then find that person who's you're going to work with and learn from, and you're going to add that benefit to their business, because their brand is being represented by someone who's able to handle a lead and work with that. So those alliances, those partnerships are really important. Don't go in it alone. And finding a good team, a good place for you to kind of vet your ideas and go through. There's a lot of social media. There's a lot of different channels, tips and tricks and strategies, different discussion groups that are kind of they're closed groups. You got to kind of knock to get in, but they're pretty easy to get in. And there's a place where you can just a support network. So there's a lot of those types of things. But at the end of the day, you have to create just create your strategy, start prospecting. Don't be afraid to mess up a couple times, because it's, I mean, you're gonna do that anyways.
Uh-huh.
But you have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, and sometimes the uncomfortable is sitting down and making 5 follow-ups a day. Would you rather make 5 follow-ups a day for a whole quarter, so 3 months, or would you rather at the end of the quarter sit down and have to make 450 follow-ups?
Yeah,
So
that's terrible.
breaking
Yeah.
it down, honestly, like that's a really I guess an insurance policy on making sure you're not
Hmm.
letting something kind of stray. So there's a lot of different things, and also just find coaching, find the right information that you need. If you need to hire a coach, there's a lot of out there. Or if you can, do your research and find the right networks or support groups that you can discuss things with and ask questions, then that's good as well. So, a lot
Yeah.
of,
That's
but it's
that's some
scary.
golden advice right there. We'll have to like write that down and post it somewhere. But and thanks a lot. I guess like one final question. We always like to ask people like what's their favorite book they like to recommend. Do you have one you find yourself recommending or read recently that you really enjoyed?
Yeah, I like Malcolm Gladwell.
Mm-hmm.
I also liked 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, but it's very abstract.
Uh-huh.
But Outliers really stood up to me because it's the untold story of success. It's not, success isn't always this story where you worked hard, you hustled, you grinded, you got the job done. There's a lot of other factors, a lot of other variables at play. So that was definitely a very good eye opener.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I should go reread that. I think I read that maybe a year or two ago. But he always has the most interesting anecdotes and story data points actually like
Yeah,
that really just make you think.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, thanks for your time. You can go check out Colin at Top Producer. What website do you have up right now, Colin?
I've CRM.topproducer.com.
Cool.
Website I run. It's got some good information. You can also reach out to me. I'm sure you're gonna put the contact information in the bottom of the.
Yep. Yeah, we'll put your email there and your Twitter handle so they can reach out to you that way if they have any more follow up questions to this. Want to send? I know people usually send emails to our guests, so we'll put your email there too. And we'd just like to thank you for being on the show. A lot of gold nuggets in this one that we'll type out and post and share around. So thanks a lot, Colin.
Hey, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I hope you took something away from this episode. We'll be back next week with the In the Lead Show. I'm Tyler with Easy Agent Pro. Subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, and see you next week.